Good morning, LinkedIn. Good morning, Facebook and YouTube. Lucky enough to stream to 3 places today. This is Wellbeing Wednesday, practical coach to coach with myself, Kerry Davis-Munro, and my fantastic colleague, Will Merthyr. Will, how are you doing this morning?
Not too bad. Lively, fantastic. Yeah, I like that. If only my energy and motivation were up in that kind of metaphor. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, I've just spoken to you, and to be honest, I know you, so you're doing yourself down. Your motivation is always way up there. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. As usual, Will and I always pick a topic that we see is really pertinent with our clients in the week that leads up to these Wellbeing Wednesday sessions. And what we tend to bring you are topics and issues and then tools to help you hopefully tackle some of the same things that our clients may be dealing with in many different ways. So today we are talking about motivation, inspiration, the difference between the two, why it's really, really important to manage your motivation, what might get in the way, and also, as usual, some hints, tips, tricks, some practical things that you can start doing to manage your motivation. So let's talk a bit about the difference. You know, when we talk about inspiration, sometimes people will say, well, you know, I heard this wonderful speaker and she motivated me to get going. Well, the truth about that is actually you heard her speak and she inspired you. If you started something, that came from you. So there is a big, big difference between somebody externally inspiring you and you feeling a light within and deciding to take action on that. And I guess, Will, we see sometimes, you know, the shining lights of people who are motivated. We would look at the top athletes, we'd look at Olympians, we would look at the rowers, we'd look at the runners, you know, we would look at people who are out there late at night on the track, on the field, or CEOs. These are the people who manage to find a motivation which shines so bright that they almost stand out. And I guess there's a difference. Well, we know there's a difference from finding that fire within and being fueled by that passion to actually one day thinking, oh, yeah, I saw somebody do that and I might have a go at doing that myself. There's a big difference, isn't there?
I mean, I'm going to come in at a different place to what I expected, which is great. Who wants to go with plans? I think you hit a really good point there in that sometimes when people speak to us, and that might be like in person, it might be a book, it might be a TV show, it might be a film, it might be music. When something speaks to us and kind of lights something up that's already there, that is basically external motivation inspiring us intrinsically, you know, internally. So there is a big difference between external motivation, which is the kind of on our own level is goal setting, to-do lists, you know, very practical. It's rewards incentivized. It's box ticking. It's transactional. That's the external motivation. But internal, intrinsic inspiration is really understanding your why. You know, knowing what lights you up from the inside. You know, if I've always talked about passion. Passion is what lights you up from the inside, which other people bring to you. That's what you were just talking about with the motivational speaker. Purpose is what's in deep inside your heart that you want to give back to the world. There's a big difference. You know, these are all inner things that people don't see, but you feel. And so I always talk about inner first, outer second. What does that really mean? It means that, great, you know, we see this on the new year, don't we? People start making lists of what I'm going to do, who I want to become, January the 1st or end of the year. You know, I'm going to do this. It's all external. What they haven't done is built the structure inside to hold them up when they do feel down, when they don't want to go to the gym, when they don't want to hold to that diet, when they do want to kind of have a drink. So external motivation is great, and that's part of it, but that's just surface water. The kind of current underneath is how are you feeling and what's going on, you know, in your imagination, your inspiration, your intuition, you know, all of these inner things are literally what drive what you see on the surface.
Yeah, I agree. So we are agreed that the inspiration is a triggered emotional response. Don't get us wrong. It can certainly start a fire, but the motivation is the internal fire from within, what I call
motivation is external.
Our petrol in the engine and fueled by our passion. So for me, when I see this with clients, it's the anchor for success with absolutely anything that they are trying to achieve, somewhere that they're trying to get to. And I guess it's what builds our mental resilience when times ahead are really, really tough. So for me, it's a reason or reasons for acting in a certain way or taking action. So as you say, having purpose. Now both are really important, but motivation in order to get something done, and you've talked about the why, and we talk about this all the time as coaches. We talk about our why, don't we? If you haven't got your why, if you're not really clear on what drives you to get up in the morning, what are the most important things in your life, where are your priorities, what are your key values, who are you doing this for, then you are not motivated to achieve or to move from where you are. Because let's face it, as humans, we don't like change. We don't like to do things which are difficult. So Will, I'm going to ask you, why is this so critical to find our motivation, to seek to live a more fulfilled, purposeful, happier life?
I think what we've got to start with is, what is motivation? If someone was to say to me, what is motivation? It is the fuel inside of you. It's the fire. It's the drive. It's the desire. It's the passion. When Napoleon Hill wrote his one of his big books, Think Rich. He talks about desire being the absolute fuel to everything. He interviewed hundreds of the top people, self-made people, not inherited wealth, but self-motivated people 100 years ago, something like that. And the word that kept coming up for him was desire. If you can tap into the desire, you will achieve, you will accomplish, you will reach, even though when you don't particularly feel like it, you will go. What is motivation and inspiration? It will get you out of bed in the morning. It will get you to put those targets down. It will get you to achieve. It will get you to tick off the box. It will get you to self-achievement, which then builds your self-confidence and builds your self-discipline. Discipline is, what is discipline at a basic level? When we talk about motivation, self-discipline is simply the amount of promises that you keep to yourself. That's what self-discipline is, isn't it? How many promises are you going to keep to yourself and not break? Which is kind of linked to motivation. So, what gets in the way? I'm always kind of looking at, for clients like you are, what is getting in the way of of motivation? Why are we not motivated all the time? And I think what we've got to do is just look at the 3 or 4 fundamentals that I see come up mostly in my clients. And number one at the minute is overwhelm for most people. I call it the thief of motivation. Overwhelm at the minute is just endemic. It's almost like a mind virus disease out there because of everything that's going on with the economy and what we've just gone through the last sort of few years. So overwhelm. Another thing might be depression, anxiety, and stress. So what we've got to watch for is these. Lack of motivation might just be the shop window, but underneath it, there's so much going on, and so the symptom will just appear as lack of motivation, but underneath it could be a lack of confidence. It could be that we're just avoiding something that's uncomfortable, that's moving into the unknown. We might have massive self-doubt and not believe in ourselves. That's a big kind of driver for lack of motivation. Perhaps we're doing a lot of shoulds, should be doing that, should be seeing my mother-in-law this weekend, should be showing up for that friend even though I've got no energy, should be doing that. That is not going to motivate us if we're living our lives by shoulds instead of wants and desires. So that's a big one. And sometimes, lack of motivation might just be that we're overextending ourselves. That we'll either extend ourselves if we've got no energy, or just extending ourselves where we're reaching too far for what we know we're capable of, and so we keep putting these lists up on these lovely shiny vision boards about that's what we can achieve. Then we fall drastically short of it, and then of course we beat ourselves up, don't we?
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to explore that a little bit more, because I think it it also very much depends on what the tasks are in hand and what the outcomes are that we are looking for. Because for me, there is a scale. On the one hand, we're talking about, oh, I need to be able to do one walk a day. Or on the other hand, we're saying I need to be able to cook from fresh, or I need to be able to increase the amount of fruit and vegetables that I'm eating, or I need to be able to have more conversations at work, say. Yeah. So, as you've just said there, it's what we see as maybe difficult and what the emotions are. And you and I talk about emotions a lot, Will, but what are the emotions that may be holding you back? And let's not forget, I've worked so much with people over the last few years on habit change. It is never about giving up the cigarettes or stopping drinking. It's about situations. So we do have to have context to the change. And I also, as I said, I think there's really importantly a scale. So we might be saying, well, I'm going to just take up a new exercise regime, and everything else in life might be really going quite swimmingly. Good relationships. We know that's the basis of, us feeling stable. Maybe, actually, life's going really well. I'm just going to add in something a bit more creative. I'm going to take up an extra art class, or, then we move to things that might be a bit more challenging, a bit more life changing. So I'm going to find a new partner. Or I'm going to leave a narcissistic partner, for example. Or I'm going to move out of a job I've been in for a very long time that is holding me down. It's going to be really difficult, but it's breaking me. Yeah. So we've got a scale, haven't we? And in terms of the motivation to do the stuff at the beginning, you think, well, that's pretty easy. I guess what the outcome is the other end may not. People might not even see it as big enough. But this is about finding inner strength along with that motivation, isn't it? And, you mentioned something earlier, Will. You said this was about, some of the situations that you and I are dealing with the clients, they're living in fear to move to the other side, aren't they? And that's a different scale.
I mean, there's a different kind of motivation that gets you out of bed to take the dog for a walk in the rain, to the motivation you need over the long term with bundles of courage to walk out of a marriage that, abusive marriage, or a loveless marriage, or a relationship that's not working, or a job that's just not feeding you on any particular external or internal level anymore. These are kind of, getting up to get that, get your lovely dog out is a 1 motivation. It's a 10 to make a big life change, isn't it? The motivation long term. And actually is a different planning process. We know that when we kind of teach behavior change to people, because so many coaches, even some of our friends and some of the kind of personal development world, they will talk about visions and goals and the rest of it, but very rarely do they actually talk about the process of habit change and behavior change, which is and self-discipline would be another one, and overcoming lack of motivation would be another one. We need these deeper skills, which is, that a lot of us coaches and therapists are out there are trying to kind of share, is that you need those type of things to know what the difference is between small little overcoming motivation issues and big ones. And the differential for me is always courage. It's always courage. You need a lot of courage to leave a partner of 20 years. You need a lot of courage to leave a job that pays really well, but it's just not feeding you on every level. So you've almost got to be a scientist of your own life and see it as a long-term project, because, it's a 10-minute thing to decide you're going to take your dog out and go for a walk in the rain, motivational wise, as opposed to planning something that's going to be one of the big crucible turning points of your life. Leaving a partner, moving to a country, leaving your business that everything seems to the outside world is ticking all the boxes. These are plans. You've got to plan that long motivation, but equally, you've got to plan when the motivation goes missing. That
Yeah.
is part of you as a scientist. You've got to understand that, a bit like snakes and ladders, you know, a long-term change, a long-term transformation, leaving a partner, is almost like a game of snakes and ladders. You know, sometimes, remember when we're kids, or, you know, we're playing with our kids now, now that we're all a little bit older.
Or
But, you know,
grandchildren.
or grandchildren in my case. You know, when you're playing snakes and ladders, you've got to realize that, a bit like life, sometimes you'll get four snakes on the trot, and you were near the top of the board game, and before you know it, four rolls of the dice, and you're on the bottom run, and you're like, what happened there? I've gone down four snakes.
Yeah.
You don't give up the game and throw it up in the air and go, I'm giving up this game of life. You carry on, because you know that the law of averages says that up the line, you will start hitting a few ladders, and you will have three ladders or four ladders together. And I think with motivation, it's the same. Some days, some weeks, some months, motivation is going to be shining like a jewel in the sand. Other days, you're going to be chasing it with a stick and wondering where the hell it is. And I think you have got to build a plan for when motivation is not there, or seemingly not there. And a bit like kind of digging for oil, you've got to kind of tap into deeper wells of inspiration that might be 2 miles down, 10 miles down, and work out what that is when it seems on the surface that motivation is going. You know, so much of people's lack of motivation, so much of their procrastination, their perfectionism, is really disguised cleverly as not wanting to move forward or fearing the future.
Well, I think that, you know, the first point of all of this is raising your head above, you know, looking outside of yourself. It's about having an awareness, isn't it? The first point of behavior change is having an awareness that you've got something that you need to change. It's about being able to have those conversations with yourself, to be able to step outside, to be able to look back, to understand what you're processing, what your emotions are, what you're feeling, you know, and to be able to start to move through that. You've really got to start to have some objectivity about your life, rather than be in it with your, you know, your fingers in your ears and just going through it. And as we, you know, as you've just highlighted, and as we're talking about, some changes are easy, and the motivation should be easier. That word should, you know, and could come easier. But some you have to recognize are processes to go through. So I think it's really important that we move on and we look at how we go through this and how we make it easy for people. So we look at some ways people could do this. So for me, as we've talked about there, when times are really hard, one of the biggest things I say to clients is you have to get your scaffolding and you have to get your anchors in place. And what I mean by this is understand the top 3 things that really work for you in making sure that your tent, you know, when we go camping and we go camping in the rain and the wind, we've got to get the first 3 tent pegs in. So, you know, for me, you know, these are always get in your movement, get in your you're eating the right food, get in your sleep, and probably get in your breath as well. But certainly make sure that when life is really difficult and you're going through difficult changes, that you've got things which anchor you and which pin everything
The
down.
storm, when the storm is over, the tent has got to be fixed down, hasn't it?
Exactly. And I guess before we start, and you've talked about the fact, you know, the comparison with New Year's resolutions, what we're talking about here is not having loads of lists, not having loads of shiny journals or whatever it is, but actually never using them. But the difference for me is being able to really attach psychologically in depth to where you are going. Because if you don't understand the benefits of what taking action gives you, and what that looks like, what that feels like, who that's affecting, and why, you know, your why, the biggest driver, the biggest petrol in the engine, and why you are doing this, then actually you're not ready to move off the start line. You've put your destination in the sat nav, but you're not ready to move because you haven't got your stop offs on the way, and you don't know, in fact, you haven't got your petrol in the engine.
I was going to say that you haven't got your fuel.
You haven't even got your fuel, your petrol in the engine to be able to do that. So attach very, very strongly. And I'm going to say later on, get yourself a team around you. I always say to whoever it is, where I'm working with a John, a Barbara, a Tom, a Harry, I always say, right, from this point on, you've got a team because I'm on Team Harry, yeah, or I'm on Team Barbara. So get yourself a team around you and understand that it's very hard to do things alone. The person who can set a goal or an outcome and go and do it alone is very rare, I've found in all the years that I've done this. And I'm sure you'd say the same, Will. So get yourself a team around you. They're all going to be wearing, team shirts with your names on, metaphorically, and they're going for the same things that you are, especially if it's one of the other end of the scale where you're making massive life changes. And you are living in the emotions which are really draining your energy and your cortisol's going, etc. So understand getting a team around you. Your why, I've said that before. And this is what I always say, whether I'm talking about setting up, for changes with food, whether you're talking, changes for exercise so that get up in the morning and you immediately can launch into it. But set up for success. And part of this is habit stacking, as you've said, or habit pairing. But understand that your environment, your plan, the way that you go about this will determine your success. So break it down. Understand the parts that you have to move through as you do this. Yeah. And understand when you set up for success, again, who do I need help from? When have I done something like this before? What are my barriers? What could get in the way here? Because that's so important to preempt, the roadblocks on the way to where you're going. Super, super important. And I know you've got lots and I've got loads more here, but one thing for me that's really important, especially if I'm dealing with clients who are, it's a long-term process, 6 months or more. Reward yourself along the way. Yeah.
Big one.
Because your resilience is going to be knocked. Your resilience and your strength is going to be depleted. So we have to look at self-compassion, self-love, reward, activities that lift you up. Certainly something that I do, which is the heart math, which literally builds your battery and manages the way that our bodies communicate. And that is vital. We can do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things, but we've got to do good things along the way. We've got to have some balance. Yeah. And I'm going to hand over to you, Will, because I've got another 15. But let's hear. We haven't got to
1 o'clock. Right. So I'm just going to go for 3 quick ones because I'm mindful of the time. So right. So it's number 1. Don't beat yourself up. We think that driving ourselves into the ground and kind of pushing ourselves like a drill sergeant in the military is going to do ourselves good. No. All the science says it's a direct opposite. We need more self-care, more self-compassion. We need to be gentle and considered with ourselves. Set realistic targets, small targets on the way, little stages, and you'll be better, especially when your motivation is low. Next one is do pairing tasks. The biggest pairing task is pair yourself with an accountability partner. Because, when you don't feel like going to the gym or going out for a run, they will, and vice versa. And you kind of help each other. You're like accountability partner. Also, pairing tasks might be doing tasks that don't particularly motivate you, but you've got a motivational kind of backstop to help it. Give an example. You're cleaning a car, you're listening to an audio book. You're cleaning the house, you've got the music up loud. You're at the gym or you're going for a run or doing exercise. You're listening to a favorite podcast, which is helping with your personal development. You're on a long walk, you've decided you're going to set yourself a project to what you're going to drop and let go of now, which is just not serving you or working for you anymore. So they're all great pairing tasks. There's lots more that I could go into. And then the final one is kind of understand your cycles, your patterns, understand yourself, because nobody knows you from the inside better than you. 8.5 billion people, you're the expert on you, or we should be anyway, in an ideal world. track and work out and monitor what your motivation highs and lows are. And then with your journal, literally go to your journal, try and find out what is getting in your way, really. Why are you not motivated? Why are you procrastinating? Why are you stalling? It could be just self-doubt. It could be fear. It could be that you just don't want to get outside your comfort zone.
Or time of year. I mean, we have to say
Time of year,
Will,
cycles,
again,
yeah.
time of year.
Yeah.
We're seeing people really struggle moving out
Yeah.
of a summer full of sunshine and vitamin D and move into a autumn leading up. God, it was dark early last night.
Yeah.
We are seeing people really struggle with that. So, know that if you're someone who goes into winter, my goodness, this setting up for success becomes so much more important than for those who don't mind winter.
It is, and the final thing that I just want to make a point on that cycles and understanding yourself is, do not rely on your feelings to drive you, whether you're going to be motivated to do something or not. If you just waited for your feelings to show up, we wouldn't get anything done. So, don't feel like going to the gym, don't feel like going this, feel like going for a walk. Don't let your feelings dominate you. Now, Stephen Pressfield, in his book The Art of War, it really kind of connected with me, and I teach this to my clients all the time. Don't wait for your feelings to show up. What he says is go pro. The difference between people that go pro and the people that let lack of motivation dominate them along with their feelings is do it even though you don't feel like doing it at the moment, and your feelings will catch you up. Your feelings will catch you up.
Absolutely. Yeah. The only one I would add to that is do not compare yourself to others.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, we don't care what other people think of your motivation or what you're doing, and don't draw comparisons. Yeah, it's good about you. It's not about anybody else.
Yeah.
Will, thank you so much. Massive topic. I mean, it's everything that we do. We're wanting to move clients from A to B, where, we can choose to stay where we are. Don't get us wrong. If you're happy and you don't want to move and life doesn't, invite any changes for you, then you don't have to be motivated, because you can stay where you are. Your choice. It's your choice entirely. But obviously, we work with people who are wanting to make changes, who are wanting to feel more fulfilled, and who are seeking to live a much more purposeful, I guess, that's the word, and inverted commas, happier life where they control the direction. And that's why motivation is important. Will, thank you so much. Your insights, as ever, and experience is fantastic to have on these sessions.
Lovely. You too, Carrie. And there's a great thing I heard last week, which is brilliant. So many people are in a flux at the minute and they don't know what to work on. It's just too much, too overwhelming. And I heard a lovely quote, and it says, if you don't know what to work on, just simply work on yourself. And it's a really, really good quote at the minute, and a good mantra to kind of live by.
Yeah. One thing, one step at a time. Break it down, take one step at a time. We will be back next week with Wellbeing Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. As usual, any questions, any thoughts, anything that you're struggling with, please, we're here to answer that. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have your thoughts. What are you working on? What motivates you? What's your passion? What's your why? We'd love to hear from you. And we will see you next week. Thanks, Will. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye, Karen.